doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
I have a question to ask you. What's more important, the presidential election or local elections?
Both are equally important to me
Why?
because both of them have an effect on the community and the nation.
Well, I think both are important. The local election is where I think the most activity can take place, where changes can be effected.
Well, I think both elections are important, the presidential and the local. We have to make sure that our community has their needs. We all together as a whole has to have resources that is needed to make a community. We want somebody that is trustworthy, that someone we can be able to rely on when needed. The presidential is also very important because we want to make sure that our country is being run successfully as a whole, and our needs are also being met. This is very important for us, and also give us an opportunity to grow and to be able to have opportunities needed instead of fighting and pulling and struggling for things that we shouldn't have naturally. So both of the electoral votes are very important.
I think that, well, both are important, but I think that a lot of times people just skip the local elections and go into the presidential elections, but a lot of stuff happened on the local level. So I think actually, I wouldn't say it's more important, but it's pretty close.
A lot more people come out for the presidential election because that's the figurehead of the country, but I think in terms of where the rubber meets the road stuff, local elections, if you can count governor as a local election, governor, state house, state senate, city council, stuff like that, is going to have a lot more impact on your daily life. So I would say the local election.
I think when you control things from a smaller level, it's easier to see change and get motivated by the small changes that you see. It's harder to see change from a presidential election sometimes, or at least notice it in your town.
Both elections is important because it affects us as lower minority, so we got to take the people that's going to take care of us.
Honestly, I think that they're both equally valuable. A lot of times with local elections, those can help kind of foster and influence presidential elections. These are people that are, if the decisions become state decisions and laws and whatnot, we want these people to represent or agree or disagree with our presidents as well. So I think they're both equally valuable. I think not a lot of people pay enough attention to local elections, and I think more people should.
Local elections are super important because they are the ones that determine funding at the city level, and especially for our schools, all of the funding and all of the contracting is determined by the school board and our city council.
I would say local, but both of them is very important. And I just make sure that the country get run right, get good leaders in there that can run the country right, people that's going to be honest, fair, and et cetera, et cetera.
So local elections are important because it's the grassroots efforts that will move the national needle in the end. That's what I would say.
I feel like it's because most of the campaign ads that they end up seeing on TV is more presidential, more global or United-wide.
I think people show up more for presidential elections because those are the ones that are advertised more. They're national campaigns, and local elections don't have the same amount of funding that the presidential campaigns do.
Because it's just more publicized. People see more of it. That's just the big thing. That's the one thing you got to do, quote unquote. But yeah, there's just so much more to find out. Like if you go to your local council meetings, if you go to school boards, if you go in even like the representatives, and like all of that happens before it even gets to presidential election. So yeah,
I'm thinking that's really just happened lately since Barack, because he got more African Americans involved, and some Caucasian too, but more African American, which we don't normally vote anyway. So, and then it kind of trickled over to Biden. So, but local is more important because you can see more happening in your own community. To me, worldwide, presidential, it takes a little while, but you can see it closer at home.
I think that's because people don't really know the issues that we have to deal with within our community. And the president, of course, is in for 4 years, but some terms are 2-year terms, some are more. So I believe that will have a say in Washington as well as the presidential election.
Perception. We are the most famous democracy in the world, so people come out to vote for whoever the figurehead of that is. But I think everyone knows who the president of the country is, right? And everyone knows who's running for president, but not everybody even knows who their own city councilors are. And so I think it's just awareness and perception.
I think it's just a misinformation, a miseducation of which one is more important. I think a lot of advertisement and a lot goes into the presidential election, unlike it does so much for the local election. So I really think that if people were more informed about the local elections, people would be more, involved. But it's a lot of money that goes into the presidential campaigning and things like that. And I think it kind of sparks people's interest perhaps more than the local elections.
That's just in everybody's head. That's society right now.
Because of the marketing and stuff like that?
I wouldn't say the marketing, it's just people short-minded.
I feel like they may be uneducated when it comes to, they just go off of like social media or what people say or people's rants, so they think like, oh, this is important because that's what's being talked about more than local elections. But if they've educated themselves better, they would realize if they want a change in their immediate living facilities, then they would come vote for the local elections.
Hey, the reason why I think more people vote for the president is because it's just a trend. They see it's Trump, and they see it's some other person. They be hating on Trump, so they just say, I'm gonna go vote for the other person because they see it's a cool thing to do.
They have strong lobbying groups. They have special interest groups that fuel their campaigns and their money. And oftentimes local politicians don't have that same sort of resource or that same sort of power group behind them.
What do you think the president gets done in the community?
Maybe it's less in the community and more like, I guess, for the nation overall, just as like figurehead for the nation. But maybe presidents, they don't probably don't have as much impact in the community as a local official.
So if they don't have no impact in the community, would that mean more local voting is more important?
You could argue that, yeah. You could argue that. I just feel like there's more pomp and more popularity with the president. That's why, to me, it's the biggest.
I think mainly because of the money that's poured into the national scope. There's a lot more of an exposure there, and they think that that's the real essence of where they can be involved.
So my last question for you would be, what are you voting for?
What am I voting for? Righteous leadership in our government.
Great answer, man. Thank you for your time, man.
All right.